New York Giants fans, it was another loss, I know. But tell me you weren't over there going, oh, good. No, I'm Coach Gene Clemons, and I have a giant issue. Ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to another edition of A Giant Issue. I am Coach Gene Clemons. Thank you for joining me as always. New York Giants on SI. That's where you can get all of your New York Giants news and information at. Make sure you go over there, check out everything that's going on over there. I know it's been a crazy year. It's been a disappointing year, but that doesn't mean you still don't need that information. Go over there, get what you need, get what you like, get what you want to know. And while you're at it, go ahead and hit the subscribe button right here at the New York Giants on SI YouTube channel. That's where you can see a giant issue. That's where you can see and listen to Big Blue Breakdown with Paul Latino, everything that we're doing over here. And I can tell you, you want to get locked in now because once we hit the off season, I'm going crazy, right? Like that's where I don't know if you guys, if some of you know or don't know, but my function over at New York Giants on SI has really been more of like a football analyst, being able to look at, evaluate, scouting, things of that nature. So you haven't seen much of me or you haven't read much from me lately because quite honestly, there hasn't really been much to talk about from my perspective, right? Other than to just um be negative and negative and negative. And I didn't want to just be negative and negative and negative. I wanted to be able to like be honest, right? But also try to have a little bit of fun, try to do things. So you haven't seen a lot of writing from me, but that'll obviously change once we get into the off season and then we get into scouting and we get leading up to the draft and then the free agency, and you'll see my breakdowns and some of my good, great and uglies, but you'll also start to see a lot of that stuff here as well. But I will have a treat. I'm working on something that is going to be the first labor of love that I've done that is very New York Giants specific, and I hope that you guys will support it by patronizing it because I think it'll be fun, right? I think it'll be fun. I think it'll be good, but I also like it'll be something that's affordable in your wheelhouse and that you can use as we start to get through and navigate this entire like draft process of the off season. But that's going to come in the off season. And if you notice, you haven't really heard me talk a lot about um off season and what the Giants need to do as far as personnel and the draft and free agency. That is by design. That is because I really and truly do believe that you owe it to a season to finish out the season, right? And there's stuff to talk about within here, right? Yes, it is a very hot topic about whether or not the Giants should draft Shadur Sanders or whether or not they should get Cam Ward or whether they should go somewhere other than quarterback. It's a big talk about, oh, well, Coach Prime's not going to let Shadur come here because he wants him to go to Las Vegas. Nobody's said that. Just because he wants the Las Vegas Raiders coach to draft his sons doesn't mean that that's the only place he wants his sons to go. It's important to understand that all of that stuff is good conversation, but there's plenty of time to have that conversation. Right now, we're in the thick of this thing, and it is clear that the goal is to not win. I told you guys this on a few episodes. The goal seems to really be to not win. And while I am all for, that I am all for trying to win anytime you possibly can, like it's interesting to watch this balance that's going on out in the media and in the Giants content world, where people are trying to actively root for tanking yet also blame at the same time and make it seem as if, oh, this is awful at the same time. Ladies and gentlemen, I'm probably one of the only people who can sit here and tell you that watching this isn't terrible. Like watching this isn't something I'm going, oh my gosh, this is a dumpster fire. No, this is exactly what it's supposed to be when you're trying to tank. Now, if you want to have the conversation on whether or not this regime deserves the right to tank and then start something new, I'm here for that conversation, right? I'm here for that conversation. But there's just certain things that have really been bugging me as I've been watching all of this play out. And that's one of them, because you can't have your cake and eat it too. This is the type of stuff that I'm seeing. When Graham GaNo lined up to kick what should have been a game-winning field goal, right? When Graham GaNo lined up to kick what should have been a game-winning field goal, the only thing that was going through my mind was how many people in the Giants world and the Giants sphere would come out and go, oh my gosh, they can't even tank properly. How can they win this game? This puts us in a poor position to be able to draft whomever we want in the draft. Like I was envisioning all of the write-ups. I was envisioning all of the write-ups. I was envisioning all of the different narratives, the different think pieces, the different stories that were going to be talked about how the Giants should have lost this game, but instead won it, and now it puts us in a bad position. But here's what I'll take from it, because I don't care about any of that stuff. This is what happens when you're trying to tank. Nobody's going to give credit to the fact that this team played really hard, that this team that should not have been in this game, right? If we're really doing the math on it, they should not have been in the game. This should not have been a game. And yet, the run defense showed up. The run defense showed up tough. The run defense went out there without starters, right? Without guys who they've been relying on as starters all season. They went out there and they held the New Orleans Saints to 92 rushing yards on 33 attempts. They held the New York Saints to 2.8 yards per rush. They went out there and held Derek Carr to 219 passing yards, a touchdown, and an interception. And they still lost the game. So, like, we can watch them lose, but then also, like, acknowledge, oh my gosh, this defense played tough, which means to me that this defense has not given up on the coach. I digress. I'll get back to that in a second. What we did see, though, is we saw an offense that was completely and totally like whacked out. And here's why it's whacked out. I don't have any proof of this. I don't have any inside information, right? This isn't me telling you something that someone told me and on the inside, and now I'm relaying the message. This is just what I can figure out just by watching the game. Remember when I told you on Saturday or Sunday morning, Saturday it was, I think, that this is what the money's for? Like, this is why you don't have to feel bad for Drew Lock being put out there in a position where he's like essentially set up to lose. It's because Drew Lock is in on the tank. He's in on it. What did he start? Like 0 for 11? He was missing everything. Take the 0 for 11 away. Take the 0 for 11 away, right? Because he threw the ball 49 times. If you take the 0 for 11 away, he finishes 21 for 38 for 227 yards and an interception. It's not a bad stat line, right? Around 50-something percent completion percentage. Like, not the greatest, not bad yards. He was only sacked twice. And here's what I love about it, because the New Orleans Saints have people who can rush the passer, but he was only sacked twice. And what I'm reminded of constantly is that the New York Giants fan base, content creators and media, they only seem to judge the offensive line play, and more specifically, the offensive tackle play, more specifically, Evan Neal's play. They only seem to judge Evan Neal's play against the elite. But guess what? Everybody has trouble. Everybody has trouble stopping Micah Parsons from rushing. Everybody has trouble keeping Micah Parsons off their quarterback. It's not just the Giants, and it's not just Evan Neal, right? If Micah Parsons doesn't get to you, then there's a better than likely chance that if Parsons didn't get to you, somebody else on the Giants got to you, because Parsons got to you, or he was bearing down on you. When the Cincinnati Bengals give up 2 sacks to the Dallas Cowboys, nobody immediately calls out the offensive line. And yet somehow, right, Drew Lock, the New York Giants give up 6 sacks, Drew Lock. We've got backups all over the place. You got the third string, de facto second string kind of sort of quarterback in. It's a bad game. We know that Evan Neal struggles with speed rush. We know that he struggles with speed rush. Right? So that's not something, wow. But nobody takes solace in the fact that, or takes pride in the fact that he came back against a New Orleans Saints team that has pass rushers and performed well. Not fantastic, but he performed well enough to do the job. And he was injured, playing through injury again. He was on the injury report right up to the start of the game. But no, we only look at things one way. I look at the fact that they're still trying to run the ball hard. I look at the fact that the defense hasn't just shutting it down. We can tell that the organization is shutting it down because look at all the players that are missing. But the team hasn't shut it down. And that brings me to the point I was alluding to a little bit earlier. I have now started to hear the rumblings of, well, Joe Schoen should be back, but Brian Daboll is on the hot seat. And someone's going to have to explain to me how Brian Daboll is the one that is supposed to take all of the responsibility for the product on the field when I'm listening. I watched Hard Knocks with everybody else. These were Joe Schoen decisions. These were decisions that Brian Daboll signed off on, but they were Joe Schoen decisions. And Brian Daboll put his future and the future of his football team in the hands of Joe Schoen, and Joe Schoen let him down. Hey, guess what? It's easy to do. It's easy to get another coach if you figure out the coach isn't the right fit. But when you figure out the GM is not the right fit, when you figure out the GM isn't the one, if you allow them to stay in place too long, they can ruin multiple years in the future. The New York Giants either need to do one of two things, and I'm saying it, and I'm sure I'll talk about it again at some point. They either need to stick with this regime and say, hey, you know what? 3 years is not enough. We're going to give them 4 years. We're going to give them 5 years. and just lock it in. There is no team that does well with constant turnover, especially at the head coaching position. Probably much less at the GM position, but especially at the head coaching position, there's just not many teams who do well with constant change. So you've got to be willing to eat the bad times and hope that, like life, your team is going through a valley, but there's a peak on the way. We can't just ignore the fact that there was a peak when they took over. They brought it to a peak. Then there was a regression to the mean. That was last year. Much of that due to injury, not necessarily because they were not good enough, but because everybody got injured. This year, it's a valley. Poor decision-making, poor performances, and injury. Okay, cool. Could this be the valley that leads to the ascent to the peak? So leave them in place. Let them go to work. Let them go to work. Because I believe that you either keep both of them or you fire them both. Because there's going to be no more time, no better time for the Giants to look for a replacement than right now. They're going to have more cap space than they've had in a long time. They need a quarterback. They're going to get a top pick. They can choose to do a million different things with them. And guess what? I'm not necessarily upset at any of the choices that are in front of them because my philosophy on picking quarterbacks is different than most. I don't think you have to go out and get a top 5 pick quarterback. I believe you can wait. I believe you can be strategic. You can understand what you're looking for, go and identify it, find it, and then cultivate that talent. I believe that. Unless it's generational. Unless that guy is a generational talent. That's the only difference. Right? That's the only difference. If the kid is a generational talent, then you got to take him. So I'm down for any machination of 3 options, which is Shedeur Sanders, Cam Ward, trade the number 1 pick, trade back, and get more picks. As much as I love Travis Hunter, I'm not taking Travis Hunter with the first overall pick when my issues are I need a quarterback, I need offensive line and defensive line help to help us be able to better establish dominance on the line of scrimmage. That to me seems stupid. I also believe that just like last year, if they would have traded back and possibly picked up a 2025 first round draft pick, they could trade back and pick up multiple first round draft picks. I believe a trade back this year could net you a 2025 draft pick, a 2026 draft pick, and maybe even a 2027 draft pick. I believe that. Because in most organizations' mind, it is quarterback or bust. What I don't agree with is the plan being to go get one of these quarterbacks who have been failures at a bunch of places, had a little bit of spark, and now we're going to go and grab them to be the bridge quarterback. No, you already have the blueprint. Go to New York, grab Tyrod Taylor back, right? Bring him in. He already understands the offense. Anticipation, deep ball anticipation, throwing with anticipation, better than most. Throws one of the best deep balls in all the game. He's not going to be under the illusion that this is his job forever. He doesn't turn the ball over a ton. He's going to get hurt most likely because he's always gotten hurt, right? Because he's always gotten hurt. So he's going to get hurt. That's why you have a backup ready to go. Let him duke it out. Like if that's what you're choosing to do. But I'm down for all of it. But to me, you're not getting rid of one and keeping the other. You're not getting rid of I would be okay if you got rid of Shane and kept Daboll. But the truth is, I don't think you should keep Daboll and get rid of Shane. I certainly don't think you should keep Shane and get rid of Daboll. They're a package deal. They came in together. They need to leave out together. Period. People giving Joe Shane flowers for a draft class that's resulted in one of the worst records in Giants history is the most laughable thing in the world. Oh my God, they really killed this draft. How? Malik Neighbors was a top 6 pick. Everybody and their mama wanted Malik Neighbors. Tyrone Tracy Jr. is a back doing well in an offense where any running back would have done well, but he ain't doing what Saquon Barkley would have did. And I'm so tired of you people out here trying to act like he is Saquon Barkley or he is giving Saquon Barkley production. If Saquon Barkley was on this team would not have 2 losses. I'm sorry, would not have 2 wins. It just would not. We're not being honest. We're not being real. Saquon Barkley carried this team 2 wins in the past. It is not. Hey, let me let you in on a little secret. The run blocking in Philadelphia is not that much better than the run blocking in New York. It's not. The run blocking in Philadelphia is not that much better than the run blocking in New York. You want to know the difference? The quarterback is such a weapon that the defense must pay attention to him. And they're dedicated to running the ball. So you're telling me that you don't think that Saquon Barkley, watching Saquon Barkley break big runs. Remember when all of you guys said, oh, well, he doesn't break runs anymore. He no longer has the explosiveness. This is what you guys were saying 2 years ago, 3 years ago. Y'all said it after the 2022 season when he was balling out. Y'all said, yeah, he's been great, but he doesn't really have. That was a justification for not giving him a contract extension. Then in 2023, he had some injuries. Yeah, but he's old. He's going to be over 25, 26 years old. That's where they fall off at. You said all of these weird, goofy things that people who don't play football say. People who play football through a computer, that's what they say. They use these numbers. Well, historically, 26 is when the fall off. Well, look what happened to this person and what happened to this person. And my response of it is all the time is, did they fall off? Or is 26 around the time you really have to pay running backs? And because people decided they didn't want to pay running backs anymore, those running backs had to move on to systems that were different. They didn't get as much opportunity as they did in the past. Like, what were all of the things that facilitated the fall off? But nope, just look at the stats. The stats say it all, right? Wrong. Saquon Barkley still balling. I'm not going to keep on to him. So it's like, I get it. People saying Tyrone Tracy. They talk about neighbors. People talking about Theo Johnson. Theo Johnson has not had a good year. Theo Johnson has not been good. Theo Johnson has showed glimpses, but he hasn't been good. drop passes, weird like run after the catch type of ability, subpar blocking, subpar route running. Like, what are we talking about? What Theo Johnson are you guys watching? Like, he's been, he hasn't been better than the guy that they drafted at the same draft position before him. He hasn't usurped that ability, hasn't done it yet. We've got 2 question marks at tight end. Tyler Nubin, he's been good, but already he's been injured. Why? Because when you play that physical as a nickel, when you don't know how to make the business decisions the right way, when you play that physical, you are bound to get hurt when you are not that big. And he is not that big. So we've got these guys, Tyler Nubin, making a bunch of tackles, right? But that just means that running backs and receivers running backs are getting into the 3rd level. Receivers are catching passes. How are you looking at that as a win? And not to be outdone, when guys do finally break through and do something well, they get hurt. You can't make this stuff up. You can't make it up. So the tank is in process. It's going the way that many of you people want the tank to go. But you can't then go, oh, well, yeah, but they're not responding. No, they clearly have not given up on Brian Daboll, or else they would have gotten blown out 38-0. And when they get blown out this weekend, when they play Baltimore, a pissed off Baltimore that's coming off of a loss and coming off of a bye week, when they do get blown out this week, don't just go, oh my gosh, it's a mess. You know that you're not better than Baltimore. You know that you're nowhere near at the level of Baltimore. So why act as if this is some surprise that Baltimore is able to kick your butt like that? The funniest part is, what happens if they don't? What happens if they lose another close game? Because you don't want them to win, right? Because you're tanking. What if they lose another close game? What if the Giants are still showing fight? If they're still showing fight, you have to give applause. You have to give credit to Brian Daboll, not to Joe Schoen. Brian Daboll's job right now is to keep the people invested through the end of the season. He's doing that job. So I'm not saying don't fire him. I'm saying if you fire him, take Joe Schoen with him. Make sure that both of their key cards don't work. They'll be fine. They get paid. They have fully guaranteed contracts. They'll both get hired by somebody as a retread. Joe Schoen can go back to being the number 2 or number 3 guy in a system where he can then just worry about like analytics and work on the cap and all of that stuff. And he can leave the choosing and evaluating the players to people who know what they're doing. Brian Daboll will go back and be the quarterback's coach or the offensive coordinator for another team. But you overhyped them both coming in. A first-time head coach, a first-time GM. So if you're not going to give them the latitude to make the mistakes, which I'm okay with, get rid of them both. But don't tell me, oh, Joe Schoen should stay, but Brian Daboll should leave. Why should Joe Schoen stay? Matter of fact, in the comments, tell me why you believe Joe Schoen should keep the job, but Brian Daboll should be fired. That's all I want to know. Ladies and gentlemen, thank you for joining me another time on New York Giants on SI. That is where you get all of your New York Giants news and information from. Go out there, check it out. PT and all of the crew at New York Giants on SI. Definitely check that out. Make sure that you follow the New York Giants on SI Twitter account or X account, at NY Giants SI or NY Giant SI, or on SI, excuse me. Make sure that you check me out on X at Gene Clemons, on YouTube at Coach Gene Clemons. That's the Coach Gene Clemons channel. You want to check that one out. And make sure you subscribe to the New York Giants on SI YouTube. Until next time, I'm Coach Gene Clemons, and I have a giant issue.